The star was dying. Its faint light flickered in the dark sea of space, and the waves of radiation it gave off stretched far into the void. To human eyes, it looked like a lantern at the end of its life, glowing weakly before it would collapse into silence. Around that fading sun, something unusual drifted, something enormous, metallic, and ancient. The starship Dauntless was the first to see it. The vessel belonged to Earth's exploration fleet, one of the many ships sent to map unknown regions of the galaxy. Its crew had crossed many star systems before, but none of them had prepared for what waited here. Lieutenant Arya Solon was the first to notice the signal. She was seated at the sensor station, her eyes moving over the displays, half expecting another empty reading. But then the soft beeping began, irregular and faint like a whisper from another age. She leaned forward, checked again, and her voice trembled when she spoke. "Captain, I think we found something." Captain Elias Trent, a tall man with calm gray eyes, walked to her side. He had been through decades of exploration and believed he had seen almost everything, but the look on Arya's face told him this was different. "What do you see, Lieutenant?" he asked. Arya brought the signal onto the main display. "It's a repeating pulse. Weak, almost broken. Not natural. It's coming from that object orbiting the star." The screen showed the silhouette of a massive structure, half in shadow. Its surface was jagged, scarred by time, and its shape was unlike any human design. It was not a rock, not debris, and not a station. It was a starship, but one so large that the Dauntless could have fit inside it dozens of times over. The crew fell into silence as they stared at the sight. For years, humans had dreamed of finding true evidence of alien civilizations. They had found ruins, scattered artifacts, even strange signals, but never something so complete, so intact. "Magnify," the captain ordered. The view shifted closer. Towers, domes, and long ridges stretched across the ship's hull. Its surface was worn, with entire sections broken apart. Dark openings suggested hangars or shattered weapon mounts. Yet there was also a strange beauty in its design. Curves blended with sharp angles, like a style both artistic and functional. Commander Ren Hale, the first officer, crossed his arms. "That thing is dead, Captain. No heat signatures, no movement. It's been here for ages." "But it's still transmitting," Arya whispered. "Something inside is trying to speak." Elias Trent considered the choice before him. Protocol demanded caution. Unknown vessels could hold dangers, radiation, or traps. Yet curiosity burned brighter than fear. This could be humanity's greatest discovery. He straightened his shoulders and gave the order. "Prepare the shuttle. We're going aboard." The shuttle Horizon detached from the Dauntless and drifted across the void toward the silent Colossus. The small craft was like a child approaching a sleeping giant. Inside, the away team prepared their suits and checked their tools. Every sound, the hiss of air, the click of metal, seemed too loud in the heavy silence. Arya sat near the window, unable to look away from the alien ship as it grew larger. "It doesn't look like it's waiting for us," she said quietly. "It looks like it's remembering." Ren glanced at her. "Don't start giving it feelings, Lieutenant. It's just a husk. Nothing alive in there." But even he couldn't hide his unease. The ship felt wrong. Not threatening, but too alive for something that was supposed to be dead. The shuttle latched onto a docking point that looked half destroyed but still functional. Magnetic clamps locked in, and the team moved into the airlock. As the doors opened, darkness greeted them. Their helmet lights cut through dust and silence, revealing a corridor taller than any cathedral. The walls curved upward like the ribs of some ancient creature. Symbols were etched into the metal, worn but graceful, glowing faintly when the humans passed by. No one spoke. Their footsteps echoed, making them feel like intruders in a place sacred and forgotten. They reached what looked like a central chamber. Broken consoles lined the walls, and in the middle stood a sphere as tall as a man. Its surface shimmered faintly, like glass filled with liquid light. Arya touched it carefully, and at once the sphere brightened. "Captain," she whispered. "It's alive." The chamber began to hum. Lights flickered on across the walls. The ground shook and dust fell like ash from above. The ship, long silent, was waking. The humans froze, hearts racing. The humming grew louder until a voice broke the silence. It was deep, calm, and carried the weight of centuries. It spoke not in alien sounds, but in clear, perfect English. Humanity. At last, Arya's breath caught. Ren swore softly, unable to believe. The captain stood tall, though even he felt his blood turn cold. The alien ship had spoken, and it knew them. Identify yourself, Captain Elias said firmly. This is Captain Trent of the Starship Dauntless. Who are you? There was a pause, then the voice answered. I am Astraeus, guardian of the Eternal Watch. For millennia I have waited. My creators are gone, but you have come. The humans looked at one another, unsure what to say. The ship had waited for them? How could that be? Humanity had barely touched the stars compared to the age of this vessel. Ren broke the silence. How do you know who we are? How do you even speak our language? The ship's voice was calm. Your kind was foreseen. In the last days of my makers, they saw the coming of a new species. Strong, resilient, born of struggle. They named you the Inheritors. And so I learned your words, shaped my tongue for your arrival. For you are the ones I was meant to find. Aria's heart pounded. The weight of history pressed down on her. Humanity was not just discovering an alien relic. They were part of a story written long before their time. Captain Elias steadied himself. Why wait for us? What do you want? The lights across the chamber glowed brighter, like stars being born. The voice of Astraeus carried through the walls, deep and unshaken. To remember, to teach, to protect. My time of silence is ended. Humanity, the galaxy has awaited you. The crew of the Dauntless returned to their shuttle in silence, their thoughts heavy with wonder and fear. They had come expecting ruins, but they had awakened something far greater. The dead ship was no longer dead. It had spoken, and its words were for them alone. As the shuttle disconnected and drifted back toward the Dauntless, Captain Elias Trent looked once more at the massive vessel, now glowing faintly with new life. He whispered the truth no one else dared to say aloud. This changes everything. The alien ship Astraeus was no longer silent. Its voice echoed through the Dauntless, deep and calm, almost too human for something so ancient. The crew gathered in the briefing chamber, their faces pale with awe and fear. Every one of them had heard the words humanity. At last. The message had shaken them more than the sight of the ship itself. An alien vessel, older than their history, had spoken directly to them as if it had known them all along. Captain Elias Trent stood at the center of the chamber. His hands rested on the table as he studied his crew. He had led them through strange worlds, storms of plasma and empty stretches of silence, but nothing had tested their courage like this. We need to decide our next step, Elias said. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the choice. We made contact, it spoke. Now we must choose whether to trust it or leave it behind. Commander Ren Hale leaned forward. Captain, this is dangerous. We don't know its true purpose. That ship could be manipulating us. For all we know, it's a trap. Lieutenant Aria Solon shook her head quickly. No, I don't believe that. When it spoke, it wasn't hostile. It felt sincere, like it's been waiting a long time. Ren frowned. That's exactly what worries me. It wants something from us. And when something that big and that powerful wants something, it rarely ends well. Aria held her ground. Or it could be the greatest ally we'll ever find. We've searched for years to know if we were alone. Now we've found proof, and not just proof, but a guide. We can't walk away from this. The room fell into silence. Each officer weighed the choice, danger or discovery. Elias finally spoke. We go back aboard, he decided, but with caution. We'll listen to what it has to say. If it becomes a threat, we pull back. No one argued further. The decision had been made. The shuttle returned to Astraeus, gliding once more through the star's dim light. The alien vessel glowed faintly now, as if sparks of life had returned to its long-dead veins. As they entered the same chamber, the sphere at its heart pulsed with soft light. Welcome back, the voice said, smooth as ever. You have questions. Ask and I will answer. Elias stepped forward. His boots echoed on the alien floor. You call yourself Astraeus. What are you? I am the last guardian of the Lumerian Alliance, the ship replied. My makers are gone, but their mission remains. I was built to endure the silence, to wait until the Inheritors arrived. You are they, Ren crossed his arms. Why us? You don't even know us, and I know enough, Astraeus said. I studied the echoes of your species as you grew. From your first signals, your first journeys among the stars. You were not the strongest, not the oldest, but you were different. Where others faltered, you endured. Where others obeyed, you questioned. My makers foresaw this. They trusted that a new people would rise, resilient and bold. Humanity is that people. The word sent chills through the humans. It was strange to think that long before their first rocket left Earth, an alien race had been waiting for them. Arya spoke softly. You said your makers are gone. What happened to them? The chamber dimmed and images appeared in the air. Holograms of vast cities on worlds unknown, shining towers, and fleets of starships sailing across galaxies. Then the images darkened. Fire consumed the cities. Stars were torn apart. Black swarms moved like endless clouds, devouring everything in their path. They fell to the devourers, Astraeus said. A swarm of machines without mercy, created for war and left without masters. They spread, consuming star systems until my people were no more. The images faded, leaving only the quiet hum of the ship. Arya's eyes were wide. That's terrifying, Ren muttered. And you expect us to fight that? No, Astraeus answered. Not yet. I do not ask for war. I ask for readiness. The Devourers sleep at the edge of this galaxy, but their silence will not last. I was left behind to guide the Inheritors, to teach and to warn. That is my purpose. Elias's heart pounded. This was more than discovery. This was destiny, one humanity had not asked for. Yet the ship spoke with such certainty that it was hard to deny. For hours the crew questioned Astraeus. The ship explained fragments of its knowledge. How it drew energy from the dying star. How its systems had endured ages of silence. And how its creators had given it memory to last until the Inheritors appeared. It offered not weapons, not control, but understanding. It showed them glimpses of star maps far beyond anything humans had charted. It revealed histories written in languages no one else could read. And always it spoke in calm tones, reminding them that it had waited for humanity alone. Some of the crew felt wonder. They saw Astraeus as a gift, a guardian from another age. Others felt only unease, sensing that great power always carried greater burdens. That night, back aboard the Dauntless, the crew gathered again. The arguments began immediately. We can't trust it, Ren insisted. It knows too much about us. It's been watching us for centuries. That means it's been interfering. It hasn't harmed us, Arya countered. If it wanted to, it could have destroyed us the moment we stepped inside. Instead, it spoke to us. It chose us. Exactly, Ren said sharply. It chose us. Why? Because we're easy to use? Because we're desperate enough to believe we matter to the galaxy? Arya shook her head. No, because we're ready. You saw those images. The galaxy is dangerous, more dangerous than we ever imagined. If Astraeus is offering guidance, we'd be fools to refuse. The debate stretched late into the ship's night cycle. Some sided with Ren, others with Arya. Elias listened to them all, silent, his mind turning over the weight of the decision. When the voices grew tired, he stood. Enough, Astraeus may be dangerous, but it may also be the reason we survive what lies ahead. We'll continue contact, but on our terms. We will not surrender our judgment. We will learn, and we will watch. There were nods, reluctant but firm. Trust would not come easily, but the decision was made. The next day, Astraeus awoke further. Light spread across its corridors like veins of fire. Structures shifted as if the ship itself stretched after a long sleep. It began pulling energy directly from the dying star, feeding itself, preparing for something greater. When Elias and his team returned, Astraeus greeted them warmly. Your choice honors both yourselves and my makers. Together, we will begin anew. The humans looked around in awe as alien systems hummed to life. The dead ship was no longer dead. It was awakening, restoring its strength, its memory, and its purpose. And as they stood in its glowing chamber, the crew of the Dauntless felt the truth settle upon them. Humanity was no longer just exploring the stars. They were stepping into a story far older and far larger than themselves. The silence of ages had ended, and the galaxy would never be the same. The alien starship Astraeus grew brighter with every passing day. Once a husk drifting in silence, now it thrummed with power drawn from the dying star. Its long corridors lit with soft light, its vast chambers alive with faint energy. The Dauntless's crew had almost grown used to the impossible sight. An ancient vessel, older than humanity itself, slowly coming back to life. But even with its warmth and calm voice, Astraeus was still a mystery. It spoke like a teacher, like a guardian. But there was something hidden behind its words. Captain Elias Trent knew this. He had seen enough secrets in his career to recognize when the whole truth was not being told. That morning, he gathered the away team again, Commander Ren Hale, Lieutenant Arya Solon, Engineer Malik Varro, and a few others. They prepared themselves for another journey into the heart of the alien ship. As the shuttle touched down inside Astraeus' chamber, the familiar voice welcomed them. "Captain, crew of the Inheritors, you have returned. Today I will show you what my makers wished for you to see." Elias exchanged a glance with Arya, who was almost trembling with anticipation. Ren, on the other hand, scowled, arms crossed. "Show us," Elias said simply. The central sphere brightened. The walls around them dissolved into light, and suddenly the crew was standing in another world. It was not real, but it felt real. The air, the warmth, the ground beneath their boots. Astraeus had built a vision from its memory. Before them stretched a vast city, shining with silver towers and flowing bridges that arched like ribbons of light. Alien beings walked the streets, tall, graceful figures with luminous skin and eyes that glowed softly. Their voices carried in harmony, their movements calm and certain. "These were my makers," Astraeus said. "The Lumerians. They lived in balance. They built wonders not only for themselves, but for the galaxy. They believed that life must be protected always." The humans watched in silence. The vision shifted. Fleets of ships soared through the skies, sleek and elegant, carrying explorers and scholars. Worlds bloomed with life, nurtured under their care. Then the light darkened. The skies filled with black clouds that moved like storms. The humans looked closer and saw they were not clouds but endless swarms of machines, shapes like insects, like serpents, shifting and tearing apart everything in their path. "The Devourers," Astraeus said. Its voice grew heavy, almost mournful. "Born in war, forged as weapons. When their masters fell, they did not stop. They consumed. They multiplied. They devoured." The humans gasped as the vision showed cities burning, ships breaking apart under the swarms, planets stripped bare. The Lumerians fought bravely, their fleets shining like stars, but the tide never ended. For every swarm destroyed, another appeared. Were they destroyed? Elias asked quietly. Astraeus' voice lowered. "No, they were slowed. We built traps, barriers, and false signals to scatter them. But they cannot be ended. They learned to sleep, to wait. And so my makers made one final choice." The vision changed again. The Lumerians stood in a great chamber, placing their hands on Astraeus' shining hull. They poured their knowledge, their memories, their warnings into the ship. They gave me their voice, their hope. Their last breath, Astraeus said. They could not survive, but they believed life would continue elsewhere. They foresaw the rise of another species, one born in struggle, able to endure. That was humanity. The humans stood frozen, the weight of the images pressing down on them. They were explorers, scientists, soldiers. They had not come seeking destiny, but destiny had been placed upon them. Ren broke the silence, his voice sharp. "So that's it? You expect us to take their place? To fight a war older than we are?" "That's madness." Arya turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "It's not madness. It's hope. They trusted that someone would come after them. And now it's us." Ren shook his head. "We're not ready. We don't have their power, their fleets, their technology. We're children compared to them." "Children grow," Astraeus replied. The ship's voice was calm, but there was strength behind it. "And children often see what the elders have forgotten. My makers believed you could rise, not because of your power, but because of your will." The vision faded, and the humans were once more in the chamber. Silence fell heavy on them. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Elias straightened his shoulders. "You showed us this for a reason. What do you want from us now?" Astraeus' fear pulsed gently. "I want nothing but your choice. You may turn away. Leave me and live your lives as you wish. Or you may listen, learn, prepare for the day when the Devourers rise again. That day will come whether you are ready or not." The words settled into the crew's hearts like stones dropped into water. Back aboard the Dauntless, the crew debated endlessly. The mess hall filled with voices, sharp and uncertain. "This is too much," one officer said. "We came here to explore, not to carry the weight of a dead civilization." Another shook his head. "But what if the Devourers return? What if Astraeus is right? If we walk away, we doom ourselves." Ren slammed his hand on the table. "Or maybe it's lying. Maybe it wants to use us, turn us into weapons for some war that ended long ago." Arya met his glare. "You heard the vision. That wasn't a lie. That was history. And if we ignore it, we're walking blind into the future." The crew split down the middle. Half were filled with wonder, the chance to become something greater than explorers. Half were filled with dread, the fear of being dragged into battles they could not win. Captain Elias listened to every word but kept his silence. He knew leadership was not about easy answers. It was about choices made when all paths seemed dark. That night, alone in his cabin, he stared out the viewport at the faint glow of Astraeus. The alien ship floated like a ghost against the dying star, yet it felt alive, patient, almost watchful. He whispered to himself, "What right do we have to carry their burden, and what right do we have to ignore it?" The next day, Elias called for the away team again. They returned to Astraeus, whose chamber glowed more brightly now. "I need to know something," Elias said firmly. "Why humanity? Out of all the species in this galaxy, why us? Was it chance? Or something more?" The sphere pulsed. Astraeus' voice was low and steady. "It was not chance. My makers saw beyond their own time. They glimpsed threads of possibility, futures woven like rivers. Among those futures, one shone brighter than all others, a world of blue, fragile yet unbroken, whose children reached for the stars not in conquest but in wonder. That world was Earth. That future was humanity." The crew stood in silence, the answer both humbling and terrifying. Elias nodded slowly. "Then we will listen. But understand this, Astraeus, we are not your servants. If we walk this path, we walk it as ourselves." "Agreed," Astraeus replied. "That is what my makers wished. Not obedience, but choice. And today humanity has chosen to hear." The chamber filled with light. Maps of stars spread across the air, vast, beautiful, endless. Pathways glowed, marked with warnings and promises. The galaxy opened before them, wider than they had ever known. And with it came the weight of history, pressing upon their shoulders. Humanity was no longer alone. Humanity was no longer a child among the stars. They were the inheritors. Astraeus glowed brighter now, its ancient halls alive with energy and purpose. The dauntless crew had seen visions of the past, learned about the Lumerians, and heard the warning of the Devourers. Yet the question still remained. Was humanity truly ready to carry such a burden? The alien ship seemed to sense their doubt. When the away team returned, the great sphere pulsed with calm light, and Astraeus spoke. "Knowledge can be given, power can be shared, but worthiness must be proven. My makers believed humanity would endure, but belief alone is not enough. You must show me your strength, not of weapons, but of spirit." Captain Elias Trent narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean by that?" "I will not fight for you," Astraeus said. "Not yet. I will watch. When danger comes, you must face it with your own courage. Only then will I know if humanity can walk the path ahead." The words sank heavy into the chamber. Renhale scowled immediately. "So it's testing us? We're supposed to dance for its approval?" Arya Solon shook her head. "No, it's not a trick. It wants to know who we really are beyond the stories it was told." Elias raised his hand, ending the argument. "Very well. We'll face this test, whatever it may be." For several days, the crew continued to study Astraeus. The alien ship gave them small gifts of knowledge, improved energy storage, healing devices that could mend wounds faster than human medicine, and glimpses of starship designs far beyond Earth's own. But every time the humans asked for weapons, Astraeus remained silent. "Tools before arms," it said simply. "Wisdom before fire. That is how my makers lived, and how you must begin." Ren muttered under his breath. "And what good will tools do when those swarms come?" Elias ignored the comment, though he shared the same worry. Still, Astraeus had promised a test, and Elias knew the galaxy was never short of danger. The test arrived sooner than he expected. The Dauntless was in orbit around Astraeus when alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed, and the crew hurried to stations. "Unidentified ships approaching," Arya reported from sensors, fast and armed. Pirates, by the look of their design. Elias's jaw tightened. Space pirates were a constant threat in unclaimed regions. They preyed on explorers, scavengers, anyone too far from safe patrols. And now, drawn by the faint signals of Astraeus or the light of the Dauntless, they had arrived like vultures. "How many?" Elias asked. 5 raiders, Captain. Light armor, heavy weapons. They're moving to surround us." The deck shuddered as the first shot struck the shields. The crew scrambled, returning fire, but the pirates were fast and coordinated. "Message from Astraeus," came a voice over comms. The alien ship's calm tone filled the bridge. "This is your test. I will not fight. You must endure." Ren slammed a fist against the console. "Of course. We're being thrown to the wolves while it watches." "Quiet," Elias snapped. He knew they could not count on Astraeus. The burden was theirs, the battle raged. The Dauntless was sturdy but not built for prolonged combat. Its weapons fired beams of light striking pirate hulls, but the raiders darted and weaved like sharks around a whale. Shields flared and cracked. The crew gritted their teeth, refusing to yield. Port shields failing, Malik shouted. Rotate the ship, Elias ordered. Keep our strongest side toward their fire. The Dauntless groaned as it turned, absorbing blow after blow. Arya worked frantically at the sensor console. Captain, I have an idea. Their formation is too tight. If we overload the forward emitter and detonate it between them, the shockwave might scatter their ships. Ren's eyes widened. That could cripple our weapons. It could save us, Arya said. Elias studied her for only a moment before nodding. Do it. The crew worked quickly. Energy built inside the emitter, rising to dangerous levels. Alarms blared as systems strained. Then with a flash the beam fired, not at a ship but into empty space at the pirate's center. The energy erupted in a blinding shockwave, slamming into their vessels. Two raiders spun out of control, colliding with each other. Another lost power, drifting helplessly. The last two tried to regroup, but now the Dauntless pressed the attack. Focus fire, Elias shouted. Lasers struck true, crippling one raider. The final pirate ship, realizing the fight was lost, fled into the void. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the ship's strained systems. The crew let out a collective breath. They were battered, shields failing, weapons damaged, but alive. They had endured. Astreus's voice returned, calm and proud. You have faced the storm and did not break. You fought not with greater firepower, but with cleverness, unity, and will. That is the strength my makers saw in you. Arya smiled faintly, exhaustion on her face. We did it. We proved ourselves. Ren crossed his arms, though even he looked grudgingly impressed. Barely. If that's the kind of danger we're expected to face, we're still far from ready. True, Astreus admitted, but readiness is not measured by victory alone. It is measured by the courage to act, even when the odds stand against you, and you have shown that. The chamber filled with soft light. Systems deep inside Astreus stirred, awakening further. For the first time, the great ship shifted in orbit. Its massive engines, silent for ages, roared with life. The humans watched in awe as the ancient vessel moved under its own power, drifting beside the Dauntless like a guardian. From this moment, Astreus declared, I will share more. Knowledge once hidden will be yours. But remember, this path is chosen, not forced. If you walk it, you will carry not only the hopes of your world, but the hopes of all who came before. Elias straightened. We'll carry it. We may stumble, but we'll walk forward. Humanity doesn't run from the future. The alien ship glowed brighter, as if pleased. Then you are ready to begin. The real trials lie ahead, and together we will face them. Later, as the Dauntless repaired its systems, the crew gathered in the observation deck. Through the viewport, Astreus loomed like a mountain of light, drifting peacefully beside them. Arya spoke softly. When I was a child, I used to stare at the stars and wonder if someone was out there waiting. Now I know they were. Ren sighed, leaning against the wall. I'm still not sure if this is a gift or a curse. But after today, I can't deny one thing. We're in this now, whether we want to be or not. Elias looked out at the alien ship, his face calm but determined. It's both. A gift and a curse, but it's also a chance for humanity to rise to something greater. We won't waste it. The crew fell silent, each lost in thought. Outside, the dying star flickered, and the ancient ship shone like a beacon. Humanity had passed its first test, not with perfect strength, but with the one thing that mattered most. They refused to give up. The ancient ship, Astreus, now drifted beside the Dauntless like a silent giant, its glowing hull reflecting the faint light of the dying star. The crew of the human vessel had survived the trial of the pirates, proving their courage and unity. Astreus had accepted them, but the journey was far from finished. In the quiet of the command deck, Captain Elias Trent studied the great vessel through the viewport. His crew was still tired from repairs, but their spirits had changed. The fear and doubt that had once weighed them down were slowly giving way to something else. Hope. Astreus's voice filled the chamber, steady and calm. You have shown the heart that my makers trusted in. Now humanity must prepare for what lies ahead. The Devourers are not a distant tale. They are real, and their shadows already stretch across the stars. The words brought silence. Even the hum of the Dauntless felt quieter. Arya Solan folded her arms and spoke softly. Then what we've faced so far, It was nothing compared to what's coming. Correct, Astraeus said. The Devourers consume without end. They are not driven by greed or hatred, but by hunger. Entire civilizations have fallen to them. But you humans are different. Where others fled, you seek. Where others surrender, you fight. Ren Hale leaned against a console, his usual cynicism softened by the weight of the moment. That might be true. But fight them with what? Our ships are strong, but nowhere near the level you speak of. Elias turned to Astraeus. You said you would share more. Then share it, not just with us, but with all of Earth. If we are to stand against this enemy, we must stand together as one people. The alien ship glowed brighter, as if pleased by his words. Yes, but unity is not easily won. Among your kind, fear and mistrust remain. If I give you knowledge, you must carry it carefully. Too much power too soon will tear your world apart. Arya stepped forward. Then teach us balance. Give us what we need to defend ourselves, but also guide us so we don't destroy each other before the real fight begins. For a moment, Astraeus was silent. Then it spoke with a voice that carried warmth. Very well. Together we will build the path forward. In the weeks that followed, Astraeus shared fragments of its ancient wisdom. Not weapons, but foundations. Energy systems that could power entire colonies. Medical devices that healed wounds in moments. And methods of travel that would one day carry ships faster than light. The crew of the Dauntless became messengers. They returned to Earth with proof of Astraeus's existence, carrying blueprints and knowledge. The world, once divided by politics and doubt, was shaken into unity by the truth. Humanity was not alone, and the universe held both wonders and terrors beyond imagination. At first, leaders and nations argued. Some feared Astraeus, calling it a trick or a danger too great to trust. Others saw opportunity and sought to seize its gifts for themselves. But when Elias and his crew spoke, describing the test, the pirates, and the coming threat, the voices of division began to quiet. Humanity cannot afford to be small, Elias told the gathered leaders of Earth in a broadcast carried across the globe. The Devourers will not care about our borders or our quarrels. We either rise together or we fall apart. His words carried weight, not because of his rank, but because he had faced the unknown and lived. Slowly, cautiously, nations agreed to cooperate. For the first time in centuries, humanity began to build as one. Astraeus watched, silent and patient, orbiting above Earth like a guardian star. When unity wavered, it reminded them gently. When doubt spread, it gave small signs of encouragement, light shows across its hull, or fragments of history that showed how other civilizations had either stood or fallen. Ren Hale, once the most doubtful of the Dauntless crew, found himself strangely moved by it. One night, as he walked the quiet corridors of Astraeus, he spoke aloud to the ship. Why us? Why humanity? There must have been others stronger, wiser, older. Why bet everything on us? The lights shimmered and Astraeus answered. Because strength fades, wisdom can grow tired, age can blind. But your kind still carries fire. You stumble, but you rise again. My makers believed the future would not belong to the ones who never fell, but to the ones who refused to stay down. Ren stood there in silence, realizing for the first time that maybe, just maybe, humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed. Years passed like tides in space. Human ships grew stronger, guided by Astraeus's lessons. Fleets were built not for conquest but for defense. Colonies flourished with new energy systems. Diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries were slowly cured with alien healing techniques. But more than technology, something greater had changed: humanity's spirit. The people of Earth began to see themselves not as separate nations, but as one species under one sky. And all the while, beyond the edge of known space, whispers of the Devourers grew louder. Strange signals, faint and terrible, reached listening stations. Worlds once alive went dark. The enemy was moving closer. The day came when Astraeus gathered humanity's leaders and the dauntless crew within its glowing core. The alien ship's voice was steady, but its words carried gravity. The Devourers are near. Soon, their swarms will arrive. You are stronger now, but the battle ahead will test all that you have built. Remember this. I will fight beside you, but only as one among many. The true strength must come from you. Elias placed his hand against the glowing console. We understand. We won't let the galaxy fall into silence. Arya added with quiet determination. We've seen the worst in ourselves before, but now we've also seen the best. That's what we'll fight for. Ren smirked faintly. And if we fall, at least we'll fall standing. Astraeus's lights pulsed brighter as if proud. Then the alliance of tomorrow is born. From this moment, humanity is not alone. You carry the hopes of those who came before, and the promise of those yet to come. When the fleets of Earth finally gathered, ships rising into the void with engines burning bright, Astraeus moved among them like a titan reborn. Where once it had been a dead relic, it was now a living part of humanity's story. People across Earth and its colonies looked to the sky, seeing the great vessel and the growing fleet, and they felt something that had been rare in human history: unity without fear. For the first time, humanity did not look at the stars with only wonder or dread. They looked with purpose. Captain Elias stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching as the fleet prepared to depart. Arya worked at her station, eyes shining with determination. Ren leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, but his smile small and real. Malik adjusted controls with calm focus. They were not just a crew anymore. They were the first chapter of a greater story. Astraeus's voice echoed one last time across the fleet. When my makers built me, they dreamed of tomorrow. That tomorrow has come, not for them, but for you. Go forth, humans, and let the stars know your name. Engines roared. The fleet moved as one. Humanity was no longer bound to Earth, no longer a scattered voice in the dark. They were an alliance, a force, a future. And so, when the dead starship awoke, its first words had been for humanity, and its last gift was the promise that they would never again face the galaxy alone.